well, thanks very much, Nick. It's a real pleasure to be here. Special organisation, education employers, and so delighted to be here. I'm going to be speaking, when I think about this, I'm going to be speaking from a background of hundreds of years in education, in all manner of roles. I research in education. I do two main things. I research school governing and I research organisational dynamics and how things work in organisations. So I think when I'm talking about this, I'm going to be drawing on all of that. My email address is there. If I mention anything in passing that catches your ear, then actually do feel free to email me. So I'm going to be just really trying to get some basics around school governing, why it's important that employers and employees are engaged, and then just talk about that nature of engagement, and then really round us off by saying what we must have now is a massive shift in how governing is seen and people are brought into the world of school governing. So here we go, some pretty basic stuff. Well, let's just check out that schools are very special places in society. Okay, well, they're important, they're significant, but what makes them special? Well, from a very, very young age through to kind of adulthood, they are places where we entrust our young people. That we assign the care and the education of our young people. The very youngest, to bring them out into a wider community. And later we're bringing them out into the world of adulthood, employment, work, and all other aspects of what it means to be a good citizen. So it naturally follows, doesn't it? The conduct of schools must be of the high quality. I'm going to be picking up on what people have said in the past, in the previous presentations, one way or another. Highest quality doesn't always equate with strong, but just means very, very good, highly appropriate, doing what it's meant to do. Okay, a school should be governed by people from those groups with a strong interest in its conduct. Okay, that takes us to what is a stakeholder model. Just written recently about that and why it's important. Yes, it's no good just filling places with people from different groups. They've got to have the capacity. But it's important that school governing is inclusive. It's important that actually it brings together all members of a community to look after a community school, a community schools, to make sure that they are the special places that they must be. It's very, very important, could have slipped a very, very in there, in between is and important, that employers are engaged in school governing. Well, why? Let's just actually say that employers have a vested interest in the quality of schools, not just because those schools are going to give them people who can actually work in their companies and make them lots of money, the old capitalist argument, not the old counterpoint to which is the Marxist view, which is, all schools do is suit people for the capitalist economy. They filter people, they sort them out by exams, and they shovel them into employment where they are. That argument, no. We need something much more sophisticated and much smarter than that, which actually says, do you know what? Businesses, at a foundational sense, will only survive if society itself is right. Okay? The people who help to do that are schools. And do you know what? Schools will only work themselves if society is right. Okay? So we've all got a vested interest in making sure that societies generally work. It's not, education, employers. We are truly, as I mentioned to Lord Nash, all in this together. So it is actually central to how we need to think. Discuss. Okay, the world of work makes a massive and positive contribution to school governing. We're not sat here with a big deficit model. If you go to most governing bodies, all governing bodies, you'll find the vast majority of people on those governing bodies do a day job. And actually, do you know what? They do pretty busy day jobs, because if you're a good governor and you're keen and you're motivated, then you will spend time doing that and you'll fit it in and do it well. Okay, well, the importance of taking responsibility. I'm going to try and be as quick as I can here, Nick. Okay. Leadership is about influencing people. Actually, we love leadership. It's fab. We think it's great. We're inspired by leadership. Actually, do you know what? Influencing is relatively easy. The hard thing in our world is taking responsibility. The hard thing in our world is taking responsibility. If you're responsible for something, then actually that's a heavy old weight to carry. Okay? Lord Nash, Minister for Schools, at a very foundational level, responsible for our schools. That's a heavy old weight to carry, okay? If you're a head teacher, you know, you'd be waking at 4 o'clock in the morning worrying about the school. Taking responsibility is important, and in organisations and in society generally. So we've got to actually, I think, up the level of responsibility taking in society generally, because it's important and it creates a particular buy-in to the organisation because you have a stake in it. Okay, school governing is centrally about that. It's about taking responsibility. And the idea of community taking responsibility for the conduct of its schools is very important. And I put in, especially at this time, I think society generally was shuddering and shaking a bit here, okay? Certainly the education system is undergoing massive, massive change. As we move to multi-academy trusts, in the way Kirsty was talking about, that is a significant shift. And good governance, wise governance, thoughtful governance is absolutely crucial. There are massive changes taking place in school curriculum, for example, okay? Schools are having to work with those. They need a set of people around them, holding everything steady and making sure that what's done is the right thing. And that's governing, making sure that the organisation is doing the right thing. Okay, employers need to be engaged. I've said why, but actually there's a sense in which if employers are engaged, then their employees will be. Yes, it does take time to be a governor. Yes, it does, you know, occupy some of your thoughts. So, you know, you need a supportive employer to help you do that. So that's there. Employees' contribution. Nick and NGA and I, the task force, NGA and the University of Bath collaborated on some research a couple of years ago where we estimated, we did a big survey, and we estimated that employees' contribution to education through governing, you can price it at 1 billion. Of course, its value is massive in comparison. It's huge, positive, and incalculable. Let's just talk a bit about aspects of engagement, because I think that's relevant. It's the theme of the conference, so let's talk about it. Those of you who are interested in theoretical models will immediately spot this one here. There are 3 dimensions to engagement in something: capability, motivation, and opportunity. Okay? If you want to ask me later why I never learned to play the trombone, I'll explain through those various headings. Okay. Sorry, Nick. Okay, engagement in governing. Well, school governors need to be capable. Okay, they need to be able to do things. Skills for governing are very important, as are qualities and values. Okay? You may be an expert in HR or law or whatever, but if actually you're not prepared to actually look the head teacher in the eye and say, I don't believe these statistics, I've been around this school, it's dirty, okay? Then you're going to be no good on that governing body. So those personal qualities of assertiveness are very, very important, as are the right values. What place do you come from deep down in your view of schools and how they are? That's very, very significant. Okay, there's something funny goes on in school governing. I've yet to work it out, but I've got some ideas, quite a few in fact. And that is that school governing develops capability in some way. We're just doing some research at the moment in adult ego development, okay? Don't get frightened by that. It's actually about how people's worldview changes as they get older, typically. And it can shift radically if you're exposed to a very, very different and difficult environment. That can be school governing. You can come from a simple, straightforward day job pitched into massive complexity, which is what schools are. And that can develop capability. And you learn about governing, which can be a very, very different activity from the day job. The capability of the chair is so important, as Claire has said. I'm delighted that where I'm a governor, Ralph Allen School in Bath, we're becoming a multi-academy trust, and the Palladian Academy Trust. And that what we've got in our articles is the chairs of the school governing bodies, okay, they are responsible for the conduct of those governing bodies. It's been there de facto for a long time. We've got it in regulation. And that is so important, I think. And you do need a darn good chair. Okay, there's no doubt about that. But that chair needs to be ready to take responsibility for the conduct of the board. The right motivation. Well, I think the motivation is an interesting one. There is no doubt in my mind that people are called to school governing. It's archetypal behaviour, as Carl Gustav Jung would have us know. Something gets awoken by people at some stage about education. They are called to it. It's vocational. People get an attachment to their school, another aspect of calling. Okay, but I've no doubt in my mind that that kind of motivation to do good work in education and to be involved in education is important. Okay, there's just something else I think we need to configure, and Nick, it comes back to the Inspiring Governors Initiative, which you're setting up with the NGA, Claire's organisation. And that is, we need to get something established, which is that school governing isn't something, you know, that, well, you won't know about it because it's largely hidden, but it's not something that other people do. It's not something that, you know, that you don't know anything about, or what is it? It's something that every good citizen should consider doing at some time. It's what you do. It's what you do. And we need that mind shift, I think, in society. Remember what I said right at the start? Schools are very, very important places. We've all got a responsibility for their conduct, okay? And people need just to understand, if you're a proper citizen in this world, you step up and you become a governor. Okay, parents and governing, well, there's a lot talked about that. Do you know, I think the big lever still to pull is parental engagement in schools. The big lever still to pull is parental engagement in schools. Do you know, 80% of the student achievement measure, okay, is decided outside the school. Only 20% of a student's achievement in exams and things like that, 20% is decided in school. A large chunk of that is parents, okay? Two things, if I can remember them. Okay, two things. The first is, it seems to me that we must have parents involved in education, and we must have parents in there taking responsibility for the conduct of the school, okay? The other is, I can't help thinking about this in terms of this conference, and careers guidance and all that kind of thing. What about the link with parents in all that careers guidance? Isn't that absolutely foundational, that we should be talking to parents and children about careers? Okay, I'm nearly finished, Nick. Okay, right, the opportunity to become a governor. Not always the easiest thing to get into. How do you do that? Do you ring up the school? Isn't that a bit presumptuous? You know, it's tricky. You haven't got children at the school maybe, but you've got something you want to contribute, you want to give something back. As Kirsty said, that's your motivation. How do you do it? Okay, well, there's a recruitment issue, and that is recruiting good governors is difficult. Why is that important? You know, we could just get away with and do whatever. It's important because research we did with the NGA and the task force just a couple of years ago showed that weak governing bodies are typically in areas where there's of disadvantage and low attainment, okay? If you've got a weak governing body, one of the things it loses and hasn't got is the ability to recruit governors. So you've got a weak governing body, doesn't recruit governors very well, so it gets weaker. So its capacity to recruit gets weaker. So it's good, and you're into that downward spiral of governance, just where you need them. Just where you need good governance, you haven't got it. So recruitment is absolutely fundamental. And from that research, what we decided, one of the conclusions, is this from our report, Nick, is a sophisticated, thought-through and coherent approach to recruiting governors is required. And that's why, Nick, I'm very pleased that the task force, as I still call it, and NGA are working together on this new initiative to recruit governors. If you get that going between you, that could make a massive difference. And I think we need it, and the outcomes and provision for our children will be the better for it. Okay, thanks, Nick. Sorry, probably overrun there. Yeah.